And we should be live. Hello and welcome everybody to today's episode of Coffee, Kegs and Kriegsspiel, the podcast of the International Kriegsspiel Society. And as you can see, the revolution is still going strong. Marshall has not returned yet. No, he's ill right now, so we wish him all the best and a quick recovery, of course. So today is going to be a little bit of an improvised episode. First of all, I wanted to share some news with you, which is, let me see, which is the proper layout for this one probably. There was, I believe yesterday or the day before, probably yesterday, an article published in the Avalon Hill International Kriegsspiel Society's magazine called The Commandeur, which they have been publishing for years, actually. Let's take a look at their website. And if you don't know what the AHIKS is, it is probably the oldest and largest board wargaming society and provides various services to their community. Go check them out. It's ahiks.com, and they have a publication, The Commandeur, and they have been publishing this one at least since 1976. So most of the volumes are available online, and we've been invited by George Phillies, who might be some of you might know him from his lectures, his YouTube lectures, or rather lectures at, I don't know, a high school or whatever, which were recorded and are available on YouTube, and they are about hex and counter war game design. So definitely recommend checking those out, and we have embedded the current episode here on our website. It's like called Playing Like a Prussian, 3-page introduction to Kriegsspiel and the International Kriegsspiel Society. So give that a read and check out the AHIKS. We are by no means affiliated, but we are friends and are happy to share the word or spread the word. And as this is a little bit of an improvised session, I also wanted to use the opportunity, and I should probably go back to the chat. I see Dave is there, Rob is there. Hello, hello, hello. Nice to have you in the chat. I wanted to point out that if you are new to Kriegsspiel, I know the chances are probably a little bit low as you're watching this or listening to this episode. But anyways, if you're new to Kriegsspiel, you're interested what Kriegsspiel is and how to play it, check out our website, kriegsspiel.org. And there's this this menu, how to play, and what is Kriegsspiel, and frequently asked questions. And I highly recommend checking out all these 3 pages because they provide you a very basic understanding of what Kriegsspiel is, of how we play it at the International Kriegsspiel Society, and what you need to bring, and that is very, very little. You only need Discord, actually, to play. And, well, what to expect. There are some player guides here, and we also have various resources, maps, and rules, and so forth. I actually meant to update the rules page, which I should do soon. Okay, so we do have on the Discord server also a channel that is about suggestions for podcast episodes. And I did go through those and then decided to do a different topic, which hasn't been suggested so far. So today's topic is going to be, are there ever be, or can there ever be, too many Kriegsspiel systems, right? If you take a look at the website, at the rules page, which I just pointed out, you will see that there are several of the well-known historical rule sets linked there, and there are also some of the rule sets, very few actually, linked, which were designed by members of ours. And there are, of course, many, many more. We have a document which serves as a sort of a list of systems, but even that, and I think there are about 20 or 30 or so systems linked in there, or listed at least, But there are so many more, because if you start umpiring, at some point you just gonna start designing your own games. I think it's like sort of the same as if you were playing board games for quite a while, and then at some point you think, man, there are interesting aspects in these and that games, and why isn't there a game that combines those aspects I'm interested in, right? So you're gonna just combine them together and design your own game potentially. And there are so many homebrew games out there. Not all of them get published, of course. It's just a tiny fraction that ever will be published by an official publisher. But there are so many homebrew rules out there, and I often think it's somewhat of a shame that so few of them get published. But of course, there's quite a barrier to getting them published eventually. Achilles, hi, howdy. Hope you're doing fine. So it's the same with Kriegsspiel systems, I believe. We had an episode on system design, how to approach that. Where do you start? What sort of research do you need to do? What should your system include? And which type of complexity grade you should be aiming at. And that definitely depends on what you want to portray, right? What you want to emphasize. It's like games, and especially war games, and even though mostly we are doing these for recreational purposes as a hobby, right? But there is an overlap, I think, from the recreational sphere to the professional wargaming sphere as well. Games are designed with a purpose in mind. You don't just sit down. That connects back to the point I made earlier, the inspiration or the impetus why you start designing a game or a system is you want to emphasize a specific aspect. And sometimes people start designing these with, they think, well, I want to portray I don't know, the whole of the Napoleonic Wars, the whole period, every battle, and everything should be in there, like, I don't know, musket model XYZ shooting 5 paces further than the other one, and so forth. And they will quickly realize that it's impossible to design such a game. I mean, you can try, and you can probably do that, but I would say that's better left for digital games that put an emphasis on mathematical simulation, which, by the way, is another huge topic, which we could discuss at some point. It's the difference between game and simulation, and is there a difference at all? Actually, it's even a very how do I say it? There the discussions even in the professional wargaming sphere about that questions get quite heated quite quickly, I can tell you. Slight Little Man, hello. Nice to have you in the YouTube chat, and also hello to Paul and Dr. Gronja in the audience on Discord. If you want to chime in, just raise your hand. Happy to invite you up onto the stage. So, systems and games are designed with a specific purpose. And that is, I believe, the reason why there can never be too many systems. Because every system, every game will be different in sometimes a very, very tiny aspect, sometimes very gravely differently. And that also connects, I believe I have discussed that already on one of the earlier episodes we did, to the question of a game designer or a system designer being or acting as a historian, right? So most of our games, and I think it even applies to games about modern and near future systems, and even sci-fi and fantasy, actually, because in a way, sci-fi scenarios or fantasy worlds are just sort of an an analog imagination of the current or past reality. So system designers and game designers are historians, even though many of them would never say they are. In praxis, they are, though. Because why is that? Because they have a very specific perspective on the past. Let's say we want to design a Napoleonic Kriegsspiel system. So they will do some research, hopefully. It's also fair to just start designing a game based on, I don't know, some popular history, some popular media you've consumed, of course. But let's say there is some sort of a knowledge base you have, which influences the perspective and the knowledge you have, and the how you are valuing specific aspects of the subject you are trying to model in your game. And then you're putting that together, and you are sort of creating, by designing that game, you're creating a reality, which supposedly is representing the historical or present reality, in part, of course. The staging of the past in games and systems and so forth can only be partial. There is no such thing, I would say, and I know many of you will disagree with me on that. There is no such thing as historical accuracy, or even authenticity, although we could have a debate about the difference of those two terms and the philosophy behind that and so forth. But I would say that's a non-existent thing. Everybody who claims to portray an history of the past accurately is lying. And I feel, from my experience, the stronger the emphasis is, the supposed emphasis on recreating the past accurately, the more there is something shady going on, like some sort of a very political point that's I don't know, trying to be covered under the authority of the past, or the historical. So that makes the game designer a historian, right? They judge the sources or their imagination. They create a new system, a new world, so to say. And then they run those games. Let's say we're talking about Kriegsspiel here. They start running these systems, and they are shaping thereby the imagination of the players, because they represent a very specific system, a very specific understanding of how combat would have worked. Let's say one designer emphasizes the impact of French assault columns against line formations, and the other one is maybe more influenced by the British historiography and emphasizes the firepower of lines against columns and so forth. And Achilles says they are at minimum mistaken, at least. Yes, that's right. They always are. And everybody actually always is, right? Which is, I think, important to understand, that we only can try to get close to what the past might have been, but we can never really fully understand or recreate the past. So the players are shaped by playing games. And there has been, and there is ongoing research conducted on how impactful that is, also depending on the media form. But even though we are still lacking like major empirical studies, just because of the cost that would be necessary to cover such a project in the long term, it's very clearly the case that active learning media, like games, even if they are just played for enjoyment, recreational games, do have a much bigger impact than movies, books, and so forth, because they are interactive, and interacting with a medium sort of connects you much more with it, brings you much more into it. Again, we could have a whole other debate about, well, what about imagination and novels, and don't you get more into that world? Don't you create your own world and so forth? But practically speaking, games have a huge impact on their audience. And that sort of creates a secondary historian there. First, we have the historian designer, and then now we have the historian player, right? Because the player is coming into the game with their own understanding of the past by whatever means that might be shaped. And they will interpret what they experience in the game, what is represented in the game, the whole imagination of the world, or a specific aspect, let's say Napoleonic combat. And they will judge that, and they will agree with some aspects, they will disagree with others, and maybe then the more they disagree, they might be more inclined to sit down and start designing their own system. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. It is something you need to be aware of when you are starting to design, and when you are maybe even when you're playing. And that means, well, let me say this. As a historian, there is one aspect I think designers should be more aware of, because they are creating these sort of imaginations of aspects of reality. It would be highly beneficial if other people would be able to follow the design process. Like, why did you decide, and based on which information and so forth, did you decide to design aspects, let's say assault column against line formations, the way you did? And did you by chance also change the initial representation of the model in the game throughout the design process? I know that many of our systems are under constant development. They are designed initially, and then even during the initial design process, they are already put to the test. Games are hosted, and they are run with those rules, and that's great. And the feedback and the experience the players and the umpires get from it then goes into the constant development and further design of the system. And especially what I love about the International Kriegsspiel Society, what we've created is this sort of a forum which provides so much input and feedback loops, and provides insight into specific research on rather specific aspects of what you're trying to model. And if you are willing to engage with the community, people are very happy and keen to discuss aspects. And even in these debates, you can see the different biases and perspectives on the past. Okay, so now I've lost my sort of thought there. What was I getting at before I had that thought? I can't quite remember. Anyways, why I had the idea to cover that topic today is because throughout the history of the IKS, like let's say the past 2.5 years, we have been, or several of our members have been designing different Napoleonic Kriegsspiel systems. Same is true for American Civil War, of course, and other periods. And they all differ slightly, sometimes gravely, considering the scale. Some are on the lower tactical level with using like the original sort of half battalion blocks, and I'm thinking of Marshall's K-22, which is using 5-minute turns, I believe. And the half battalion blocks. Then we have Otto system, which has very specific dice. Well, Marshall system has as well, but I think Ottos are a little bit more streamlined, and uses full battalion blocks. Then we have Rob's. I don't know the name actually, but the system he used for Austerlitz and so forth, which also is using battalion blocks, but is representing a higher, more abstracted command level. And I know that Rob and Otto together are working on a revamp of Otto's system right now, so Otto's Napoleonic system, and are looking back at the original rule sets. I myself am currently working on a new system, which is trying to sort of, well, it will be based on probably on the Chischwitz rules, which have proven to be the most stable of the historical ones, but then take into account the insights and changes that have been applied from 1824 to up to 1908, which is sort of the golden age of the classical Kriegsspiel. After that, Kriegsspiel becomes more of a, well, in its various forms, more of modern wargaming as we understand it today, thinking of professional wargaming, that is. So there are so many different rule systems, and there is no reason not to use any of them. There is good reason to use them all, compare the experience, compare what they are trying to emphasize. I think that is one aspect we have neglected so far. We have that exchange going on, which is very beautiful, I think, and very much inspiring and beneficial to the designers and also to the community as a whole, I think, when it comes to sort of the educational aspect of game design. But what we might be lacking is comparing the various systems we have for a given period, and taking a look at what they are trying to do, what they are doing differently, what that means in the result when we play these games. And I think that's something we should probably emphasize a little bit more. Don't know if anybody in the audience has an opinion on that. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even mention that in the beginning. I'm using StreamYard today because Marshall fancied we should probably do that maybe. If anybody wants to come onto the stage, that is still possible on Discord. But if you want to get in with your camera as well, you just say a word and I send you the link to the StreamYard session. That's very easy to join there. Anyways, so I think that's about all the rambling I wanted to do today. We are already 24 minutes in, and we have a little bit of time for some questions and ideas. Anybody in the YouTube chat or on Discord, I'm going to invite you folks. If you have opinions, hop on stage and let me know. Dave, Paul, hello. How's it going? Good morning. Ah. Mm-hmm. And that is shifting forward, right? Historically speaking, from a time frame, yeah. Mhm. I see. And I just got a feedback from the YouTube that the audio is not coming through, which is a shame. How do I do that? Let's see. Windows. If anybody of you could say a few words. Let's see if that comes through. It should. That's one of the aspects of Streamlit I don't like. It doesn't have an audio mixer, so I can't really see what's going on and what the audio levels are and all that. Anyways, okay, so that's great news. Just to recap until we get the feedback. Red versus Blue is getting a new iteration, jumping forward 5 years into 18012, and there's currently some redesigning going on there, which is great. All right. So, Paul, do you have any opinions on today's topic? Great, I agree. Okay, and I'm still not quite sure if it's fixed now. If I pull up the shared screen, no, unfortunately not. So that's the bummer. I have to look into that, how to fix that in the future. But well, then thanks anyway for your input, even though it was just me hearing that. I hope everybody enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you on the next adventure. Bye bye.